raise your hand if you are confused by all the tightening devices out there. Maybe you have some sagging, you have some deep folds, maybe you're in your 40s or 50s and you just don't know which one might be best for you because there are so many out there that you've heard of randomly online on social media, etc. So if that's the case, I'm here to help you with that. My name is Dr. Ray. I'm a board certified dermatologist. I have 15 years of experience treating aging faces. I help women all over the world in perimenopause and menopause look 10 years younger without going under the knife. And by the end of this video, you are going to have a deeper insight on the different options available to you when it comes to these tightening lasers and devices, and be better able to make an informed decision on what kind of treatment you want to seek out. And maybe you have a local dermatologist, but maybe you're a little bit intimidated to go in to see them, to get a consultation, or you're just intimidated to ask questions. So if that's the case, I'm here to help you with that. So let's get right into it. And before I dive into the different devices, I do want to say that none of these devices are going to get you facelift-like results, okay? And specifically in this video, I'm talking to the woman who is in her 40s, her 50s, maybe even her 30s, and is looking to help improve those jowls and sagging and deep folds to a degree, but knowing that you're going in not going to get facelift-like results where you might get like a 75% improvement in the sagging or 90% improvement. With these devices in general, you are looking at more like a 15% to a 25% improvement in deep folds and sagging. There are some exceptions to that, which I'll tell you about, but in general, that is the kind of improvement you can see with these devices alone. And that's another reason I always say when you are looking to improve jowls and sagging and deep folds and those kind of things, you want to not only address that collagen and elastin loss that is leading to those things, and that's what these devices do. They stimulate collagen and elastin to a degree that you can't do with retinoids alone or retinol, but you also want to restore some of that volume that's been lost and is also contributing to the sagging, that deep tissue volume, the subcutaneous fat, the bone loss. We need to restore some of that volume too if we want to get a really good noticeable result and also look as natural as possible. You don't want to rely just on volume restoration like fillers and Sculptra, and you don't want to rely just on devices either. Okay, so the first device we're going to talk about is the most popular one these days, which is radio frequency microneedling. You might have heard of Morpheus 8. That is the most well-known brand of RF-MN devices, although there are many other devices as well that do the same thing. So how these work is that they use needles, fine needles that deliver radio frequency energy underneath the skin to stimulate collagen and elastin growth. And I really like RFMN for people who are in their 30s, maybe their 40s. It is really good for prevention if we are looking to do a preventative treatment because it is fairly low risk and fairly low cost too if we're comparing costs with these other options for treatment. And doesn't mean it's cheap, it really isn't. You are going to be paying like $800 to $1,000 per treatment probably, but it can be really good for prevention, again, in someone who is on the younger side, 30s, maybe early 40s, and is looking just to preserve what they've got. Now, if you're looking to reverse some mild sagging, then yeah, you're going to need multiple treatments, 3 to 4 treatments usually. And so that does add up, doesn't it? It adds up anyway to a few $1,000s. These devices are also great for someone who has a little bit of wrinkles, like some texture issues, because they help not only with improving sagging and jowls to a degree, but also with the surface level changes that we see with aging. And so if you have some mild wrinkles and some mild sagging, then this is a good treatment. You do have to know there could be a bit of downtime. It's not a no downtime procedure, and the downtime is fairly small. It's usually a few days up to maybe 5 days, 7 days maximum of just redness. Sometimes people get some fine crusting as well, but it's not a zero downtime procedure. So you have to have some tolerance for some downtime, and you have to be okay with multiple treatments. And if you are someone who doesn't like pain at all ever, then this might not be the right treatment for you. Yes, it can be a very comfortable treatment depending on what settings are used. If you want to go more aggressive though in the settings, it can be painful even with numbing cream. So just keep that in mind. Okay, the next device we're going to talk about is the ultrasound-based devices. These are things like Softwave, which is newer, or Ultherapy, which has been around longer. And again, these are nice for someone maybe in their 40s or even early 50s. They do provide some mild to moderate improvement in sagging. And if you look at the studies, average is probably about 20% improvement in sagging, okay? This is great for someone who wants a one and done treatment. You might need 2 treatments, but I would say most people who are on the milder side do do one treatment. It's also good if you are someone who does not have any tolerance for downtime, because there's pretty much zero downtime for this treatment. You might have maybe like an hour or two of redness after the treatment, but for the most part, you can just go back to your daily life and take pictures the next day if you want to. And then regarding pain tolerance, this treatment can be uncomfortable. You will, of course, be numbed with numbing cream in most places. Some places might even offer nitrous oxide, which is like laughing gas, like you get at the dentist's office or used to get at the dentist's office. And that helps the tolerability of the treatment. But yeah, it definitely can be uncomfortable. And as someone who has had this treatment, I can tell you that when I did it, I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. It is so painful, even with the nitrous oxide. But after, it's kind of like childbirth, after like a year or two, you're like, oh, maybe I'll do that again. So yeah, it definitely can be uncomfortable, but you get over it. Okay, the next device is traditional radiofrequency devices, like Thermage, for example, is the most well-known one. And these don't use needles, they just use a different type of handpiece to deliver the radiofrequency energy into the skin by kind of gliding it over the skin. And with these kinds of treatments, they can provide, if you look at the studies, a little bit better of an improvement in the sagging and the folds over the two devices I already talked about. So a moderate improvement in sagging, somewhere in the 20 to 30% improvement range. And these are also nice for someone who likes a one and done treatment. And of course they can be more expensive too. So for example, for the ultrasound-based device, very variable, by the way, on all of these, depending on where you're going, who's treating you, what part of the country or world you live in. But let's say in the United States, on average, ultrasound-based devices may be $3,000 to $4,000 per treatment if you're doing, let's say, a full face. But Thermage and the other radiofrequency-based devices can be a little bit more, like maybe on the $5,000 range. And again, they can give you a bit better result. No downtime with these, which is nice. And again, usually a one and done, maybe maximum 2 treatments, depending on where you're starting and where you want to go. So because of the degree of improvement that you can see, these are nice for someone in their 40s or their 50s who's looking to get some improvement in their sagging. And with regard to pain, again, the radiofrequency devices kind of depends on what settings are used, but generally they're fairly tolerable with topical numbing, and they have no downtime. So that is also nice if you just don't have tolerance for downtime. Okay, the next device we're going to talk about is Mface. This is a very specific device that uses a very specific technology, which is that it stimulates muscle contraction in the face and also delivers radiofrequency heat. And there's not any other devices that really do the same thing with regard to the muscle contraction. So these work in a unique way. And again, just like most of the other devices, you get kind of a mild to moderate improvement in sagging. If you look at the studies, about 20% improvement or so. This is interesting. These devices are really nice for someone who has like zero tolerance for downtime, because there really is no downtime, and zero tolerance for pain, because there's really no pain involved here. It's kind of a strange sensation when it's contracting those muscles, but it's not painful per se. And it's good for someone who is okay with frequent treatments and frequent maintenance, because this one does require 4 weekly treatments, and then the maintenance is more frequent than with the other devices. So maintenance treatment every 3 to 6 months. And you can imagine that about $1,000 a treatment, that price kind of adds up, okay? But yeah, again, it is good for someone who has zero tolerance for pain or downtime and wants something that, again, can give a mild improvement. So maybe someone in their 40s or early 50s, mid 50s would benefit from an Mface if, again, they are okay with doing multiple treatments and frequent maintenance. The next device I'm going to talk about is ablative lasers. Now, there's no one ablative laser. This is a technology more than anything. CO2 and erbium YAG lasers are the types of ablative lasers that are used, and there are different many brands that have that kind of technology, okay? Now, you can get tightening of the skin with a resurfacing laser. You just want to know when you go in that you are going to need a fairly aggressive treatment, like moderate to aggressive settings on that laser, in order to get any noticeable improvement in jowls and deep folds around the mouth and the nasolabial folds, etc. Okay, so you have to know that going in, because when you have your consultation, you do want to ask your dermatologist or plastic surgeon, whoever is treating you, how aggressive they're going to be with the settings, what is their plan, and what kind of outcome can you expect if you are really looking for improvement in sagging. And ablative lasers are really good for someone who not only has sagging, but also has a lot of surface changes in the way of fine lines, even deeper wrinkles, maybe crepey skin, maybe a lot of sun damage, sunspots, dark spots. It is really nice for that kind of person because it really gives you a clean slate on that top layer of skin. Of course, not guaranteed it's going to remove every single spot or every single wrinkle, but it really helps clean things up dramatically, much more than any of the other devices we talked about, even the radiofrequency microneedling, which has more of a really mild effect on those wrinkles and texture. But a moderate to aggressive laser resurfacing with an ablative laser can get you really dramatic improvement in those surface changes. And yes, can give you some improvement in tightening as well. So if we are looking for improvement in tightening with an ablative laser, I would say this is good for someone in their 40s to their 60s even. And again, just really, really highly dependent on the types of settings that are used. So it's really important that you have a frank discussion with your doctor about that. And you have to go in knowing that if you do that treatment, that there's a good amount of downtime. You're going to be really crusty and oozy, probably for about a week or so at least, up to 2 weeks, depending on how much ablation is happening. And you're gonna have probably persistent redness for several weeks, even months afterwards, okay? And these types of lasers are really best for people that are in the fairer skin types. Someone who is more olive toned or darker really have to be careful with these ablative lasers, and you can't go super aggressive on those settings. And that brings me to the skin type, because I didn't mention that with all of the other devices that I already talked about, they are safe in most skin types. The one is the radiofrequency microneedling. You have to be a little bit careful because there are needles involved and potential for crusting and scabbing. And whenever that's the case, people with darker skin types can have problems with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which is dark spots, or hypopigmentation, which is light spots. However, in general, very safe. And then the other devices, again, quite safe in all skin types. Of course, complications can always occur, but generally safe. Okay, there are two other devices I want to talk about. The first is the Fotona 4D. This is kind of a unique device as well because it employs two different technologies, an erbium YAG and an ND YAG, so an ablative and a non-ablative type of laser. And that treatment really is meant to work, as the name suggests, 4D on multiple different tissue levels. So it is good for someone, again, who has surface damage like fine lines, wrinkles, spots, and just texture issues, but also want some improvement in sagging. And when they do this treatment, they have one part of the treatment where they go inside the mouth to deliver heat internally to get those deeper tissues, and then externally as well. So this treatment also typically requires multiple treatments, like a series of 3 to 4. And there definitely can be some downtime because there's usually some crusting that happens from that surface treatment. And so it can be anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 7 days of downtime. Generally very comfortable with some numbing cream. And this treatment is good for somebody in their 40s and 50s, anywhere in that range, who is looking for improvement in both the surface lines, texture, spots, and also a deeper treatment helping with folds and sagging. But you do have to have tolerance for multiple treatments and some downtime. And then the last device I want to talk to you about is not an energy-based device. It is a device called Eloor. This is a newer device. It was approved a few years ago, and it uses what we call microcore technology. So basically it is removing tiny, tiny cores of skin, tiny cores of tissue in a grid pattern in the areas of treatment, and they're less than 0.5 millimeter wide. And what that is doing is stimulating your skin's healing process, and in doing that, it stimulates collagen and elastin growth and provides improvement in things like wrinkles, fine lines, crepiness, and sagging. Okay, so this is something that not as many dermatologists or plastic surgeons are performing yet. Again, it is a newer device, and there are a few things that you want to know going in. First is that it is usually a one and done or maybe a two and done treatment depending on where you are and what your goals are. I would say it's good for someone in their maybe late 40s to 60s even, and it can provide pretty good improvement in sagging. At least in one of the studies, it was a smaller study, so we'll take that into account, but they showed 50% improvement in sagging and folds in that study. So that's pretty good improvement for something that is not a facelift. And you do want to go in knowing that there's, again, is some downtime involved, of course, with this procedure, usually up to 7 days or so of scabbing and redness. And it is really best for people with the fairer skin type. So again, someone with a more olive tone skin or darker, there's a higher risk of pigment abnormalities. Risk of scar is also possible, but it is really, really rare. And the reason is because those little cores of tissue that are removed are so tiny. They're really below the level of damage that's required to cause scarring. And of course, that's why this device was created that way. But yeah, those are things you want to keep in mind. Usually one and done. Again, price wise, it can be fairly expensive, probably in the $5,000 to $6,000 range per treatment in the United States, and a little bit of discomfort with the treatment, and afterwards it is not too uncomfortable. Most people tolerate it just fine. So that was a fairly comprehensive list, of course not completely comprehensive, of all the possible devices and technologies out there for improvement in sagging and deep folds, etc. However, hopefully it helped you to get some insight onto what your different options are and some of the differences between them. And you might have noticed that there is not one best perfect option, right? You really have multiple options when you're looking to treat sagging with an energy-based or non-energy-based device. A lot of these treatments really are interchangeable when it comes to helping with sagging and deep fold. And so some of it is going to be dependent on like your dermatologist. What devices do they actually have in their office? And what is your budget? And do you have tolerance for downtime? Do you have tolerance for potentially some pain or discomfort? And what is your skin type? Are you a fairer skin type or a darker skin type, where some of the treatments might be ruled out? So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what your questions you have in the comments below. And if you want more insight on these treatments and also other ways that you can age amazingly well in perimenopause and menopause, in those years of life when our estrogen has declined and it is not supporting our skin like it used to, and definitely we're noticing those changes on our skin, I'm going to be updating and re-releasing my signature course in 2026, making it so much better than it already is. And if you want to be on the early interest list for that, so you get first access to the course and an exclusive bonus, then just comment waitlist below in the comments and I will get you. And in there, we're going to dive deeper on these treatments and give you more insight and help you to decide really what might be best for you in an even more in-depth way than I can do here on YouTube. And lastly, if you want some tips on ways that you can start pulling from the different tools in our toolbox, like skincare and professional treatments and lifestyle and habit shifts that you can make in order to start getting on your path to that more youthful, healthy skin, I have a free guide for you. It is called the Dermatologist No Nonsense Guide to Aging Like a Pro. So just comment guide below and I will get that over to you. And if you are not subscribed already, please do. And please like this video if you like this video so that more people will see it. And we will chat again next week.